Well, welcome everyone as you're coming in to the session. I am Saran Counts. I am the Director of Programs at Women in Product. I am so honored, so pleased, so excited to host this workshop today. We have wonderful speakers from RealYou Leadership, Nadia Diala and Claire. You guys, this is a topic, right, that I think is going to resonate with so many in our community. Tactics for negotiation and self-advocacy for women PMs, Black women, women of color that really deal with this topic. So I am not going to take away your thunder. I am going to turn it right over to you to get into this topic that is so needed. So
Thank you
for
so
being
much. Really appreciate coming back to Women in Product. We presented in day 1 and day 2 of the conference this year. So as I set up, I'd love to see who might have joined. Did anybody join the conference or see any of our workshops? And you might be familiar with a few things here, but this is an expanded version of day 1's mindset workshop where we actually go over tips on how to anchor your next negotiation. Thank you everybody for sharing where you're at. If you see me ever looking to the right, it's because I want to look at the chat and anybody who we might invite onto the stage. But as Saran said, this is Tactics for Negotiation and Self-Advocacy, specifically for Black, Indigenous, women, and femmes of color, and PMs here. So we work with folks in tech, and for allies who might be joining here too. We know that you can benefit from this greatly because we'll also be sharing tips on how organizations and allies can help close the intersectional pay gap today. So I'm Nadia Diala. My pronouns are she, her. I'm currently located in a lonely homeland, aka colonially known as Oakland, California. I am the founder of RealYou Leadership, and I'm also an ex-techie. I used to be in tech sales for enterprise sales in Booking.com and was the first account manager for a company called HelloSign before they got acquired by Dropbox. So helped build out the sales team and the sales workflows and processes there. And I am a facilitator and speaker, as well as a leadership and negotiation coach, where we've, through our workshops and corporate workshops and other organizations, we've served over thousands and thousands of folks, particularly BIPOC women and femmes, and coaching clients of over 150 BIPOC women and femmes in tech. I like to call myself the shatterer of glass, bamboo, concrete, ceilings, whatever it is you are facing, we are going to move through it or move around it. And I'm excited to help you elevate your leadership and your career growth today. So a little bit about Claire, my team member here, who will be helping manage the chat.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Claire Lumbang. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the client success coach at RealYou Leadership, and here today I am your support system. I'm here to hold space for your learning and your growth. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat, and I'll try my best to address them, or I might move them over to my virtual parking lot here for our Q&A at the end. Some things about me: I also was a past corporate sales queen. I have been a Filipino food biz owner. I owned a Filipino food pop-up with my husband, dabbled in some freelance sales ops work, and now I found coaching with Nadia here, and I love it so much. So thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So what we do in RealYou Leadership, one of our core missions is to help close the intersectional leadership and wage gap by elevating BIPOC women and marginalized leaders across the board. And we support diverse, high impact leaders and partners. These are some of the very few companies out of many that we've worked with, either with workshops that we bring into their ERGs and their marginalized leaders, and for our coaching clients that have worked with us. And we bring a human-centered approach. We love to keep it real. That's why we call it RealYou Leadership. And we love for you to bring your full self into any room, the real you, no matter what room you're in, no matter who is in the room. And we bring this everywhere we go to our career growth and leadership development trainings and lessons. And our process always shares some strategy, and we always focus on mindset. I'm a mindset coach at heart because all the free tips are out there for free $99, a library book away, an online search away. And it's interesting to see what stops us from doing things like advocating for ourselves and negotiating. And a lot of times there's some internal mindset work we can do to start handling the external challenges better. And we will give you some tips and thoughts for deeper inquiries that you could take away after this workshop and start integrating any learnings by acting, right? Nothing we learn matters. We say in coaching is just good conversation unless you actually take your learnings and act to integrate and solidify your learnings and embody them more. And we will also hopefully leave you with some support. You might leave with an accountability buddy or some friends for what you might want to do as you prepare for your next negotiation. And our agenda today, we're going to go over what equal pay days are, why they're important to know, and the impact of intersectionality and systemic oppression on what is happening with these massive pay gaps we're witnessing, as well as mindsets and tactics and how allies and organizations can help. We're going to have a breakout session for folks to really get to know each other and discuss their learnings and solidify some actions to move forward and design that for yourself, and a group discussion and Q&A. So for the Q&A, if you have questions throughout, again, put them throughout. Claire might be able to answer them right away. She is our client success coach, knows this agenda and this content and how to teach this through and through. And if it's something that might be best for a larger discussion, she'll save it for the Q&A for later. So don't hold back all your deep, juicy questions. We want to help you with any questions for negotiations. I know that there is a lot of fears and worries, or just, I need a quick breakdown and some clarity on how to approach this. Hopefully our content will help you understand more ways you can show up, but you might have even further questions or clarifying questions. And before we move forward, we have just some quick community agreements. We want you to dare to be courageous and vulnerable. I always ask our coaching clients, I want you to bring that 1% that you're even scared to admit to yourself, that I'm terrified of my boss, or I'm terrified of sticking up because I don't feel worthy enough, etc. Dare to go there, because that's where the juice is. That's where your growth edge is, where if you pass that growth edge, when you are courageous and vulnerable and move forward beyond your discomfort, growth and learning is there. So we ask that you also take space and make space. Dare to ask questions. Dare to say, ooh, that's me. Dare to say, I want to learn this more, and make space for others learning too. And I put, it's actually blocked out. Apologies for that. So centered learnings of BIPOC women and femmes. If you're an ally, we know you can apply this to yourself and center our learnings. And recognize impact over positive intent means we all came here to learn negotiations and advocacy for ourselves, right? We all came for the same intent, and recognize that what we say or don't say or do or don't do does have an impact. And we want to create space for multiple truths, meaning you could say, I'm really scared of negotiating and I want to learn and I'm still growing and I'm really, really wanting to see what's possible here. All of that can be true, and accept and expect non-closure. So what that means is you might not be a negotiation badass and expert in 2 hours, right? What we want is to set a solid foundation for you to move forward and create more sustainable advocacy and negotiation practices moving forward. And of course, Vegas rules. Take the lesson, not the story. We want you to network with each other. Make sure you click through and see everybody's profile and connect with each other on LinkedIn, connect with us on LinkedIn. But if anybody dares to share personal stories or negotiations you're approaching on your own, etc., make sure that if you want to share, this is what I learned from someone's story, do not share their information, do not share their names, their company names, confidentiality essentially. So can I get some reactions here to make sure in the chat that we are all good to go? We're all in alignment here before we fully move forward. I would love to see that. Okay. Awesome. And yes, to impact over intent. I'm so glad that that is a common practice more and more we're seeing now. We actually just taught a workshop on how to create psychological safety for your BIPOC team members when you focus on impact over intent. So I love that. Okay, so a few things to share on why this is important and how some of our clients have been able to implement this and achieve massive results. This is Jamie, an Indigenous woman, the co-founder and co-director of Native Women Leads, who even in nonprofit work was able to increase her earnings by $30,000 and also advocated for her colleagues to receive appropriate compensation. She said, I closed my pay gap. I'm gonna help others close their pay gap too on our teams because that's the right thing to do. And this is why we at RealYou Leadership just love working with BIPOC women and femmes, because although it can feel like a lot of weight and responsibility, we do care about lifting as we go. We care about extending the hand to lift as we go, leaving the ladder that we climb behind, leaving the road we paved continuous and unblocked for others to follow us. And Kalia, which some of you might be familiar if you have seen her speak at Women in Products Conference, I believe 2020, as well as last month's conference. She was one of the stage leaders and moderators. Yes, huge fan girl. Kalia was one of our clients for RealYou Leadership and was able to negotiate a 20% salary increase as well as other larger benefits. But she learned to love negotiating and said after she joined RealYou Leadership, not only did she have one successful negotiation, but countless. This is about your return, your full earning potential for the rest of your career and life, not just about this next upcoming negotiation, whatever you have in mind. And working with us in our group program, as well as the one-on-one elements that we have, she was able to take away the stigma and self-doubt. And that's one of my goals in this workshop for you today, to say, I am not scared. I am no longer playing people pleaser. I am no longer feeling shame or self-doubt to advocate for myself. And this is Shantae, and our clients are expansive and authentic. And Shantae said after working with us and learning this content we're going to share with you today, that as a leader, she said that she was able to create a safe space on her team and learn that if she showed up authentically, she was modeling that her team could be imperfect, didn't need to be perfect or conform in order to be accepted. And that's really what we want in RealYou Leadership, because to be a RealYou leader is all of these things. We want you every step of the way in these next 2 hours to think, how can I be the leader I know I can be? How can I show up as the real me when I advocate next? How can I elevate my brand as I manage up and will ask for more? And how can I do this in a way that isn't coming from my fears? So we're going to go over mindset on the types of fears that might block us from advocating powerfully. And how can it come from my values instead? And we always say, act from your vision, not your current vantage point, and self-advocate every damn day. So I'd like to know in the chat for everyone that's here, what are your career goals in the next year, 1 through 8? You could put it in the chat. It might be 1 through 8, or you could say, I just want 1. No shame in wanting just more money, right? Or you might want more responsibility, recognition. Number 3 is promotions, that next level job or role. Number 4 might be, especially if you are a entrepreneur or you're in sales, like I have been and Claire has been, you might say, I want the biggest client in BizDeal because that means I get more commission, right? Or more benefits like childcare, PTO, learning and development, being able to work remotely or hybrid, which a lot of our clients are negotiating right now, as people are told they have to return to office. Or 6 is more boundaries. 7 is more respect. 8 is more joy, space, and time. You can negotiate all of these things. It is not just about money. Okay, so 1 and 5. I love that. 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Love all the multiples. Yes, here for it.
We are here for all of this. And pay attention to who wants the same things.
Yeah.
Because you might want to grow that network and say, after this workshop, how are you doing that? Do you want to work together on our scripts, which we'll get to towards the end? And a lot of folks here want the same thing. And ultimately, these are all interconnected. All these resources that we would like, all this energy that we would like, right? We teach in RealYou Leadership equal energy exchange, where money is a form of energy. The expertise, the job that you do, the deliverables that you do is another form of energy. And we're really looking for an equal energy exchange. And with the energy of money, we are able to create more space, time, and overflow for the people in our lives and the communities that we support. So another question for you, would love for you to spill the tea. How comfortable are you self-advocating and asking for what you want in your career? 1 is comfortable and good at it. We love to see those. 2, I can do it, but I might spiral out a bit afterwards, which is normal. 3, I'll try to do it, but it don't always succeed. And 4 is I forgot to do it in the chaos of work. I forget all the time. It's not my priority. I don't have time or space. One of our clients said this. I know that my self-growth and my career growth is important, but I am at capacity and I don't have time. And number 5 is avoid it at all costs. There's no right or wrong here. We just want to know, where are we meeting you at today? Okay, lots of 2s. Awesome. 2.5, we love that. Brittany, 3, awesome. So 2 and 4s. Okay, so we're all generally in the same place, right? And again, there is no right or wrong, because even if you were a 1, we would ask you, what would make you above that? What's 10% more comfortable from 1, right? So wherever you're at, we're not expecting you to make leaps and bounds right away. Advocacy, negotiating, leadership, it's all a muscle. And if you're not used to working that muscle and the skill set of activating your voice unapologetically, that's okay. What we do want you to focus on is incremental change. So really think to yourself right now, get curious and say, well, if I'm a 3, what would it look like to be a 2? Or that 2.5, what would it look like to be a 2? If I'm a 4, what would it look like to be a 3.5? Right? What changes happen in the mindset? What changes happen in your connection to your confidence? What changes happen in your action? So we'll get to that to help you with that. And if you feel comfortable sharing this in the chat, I have a few questions. In the last 30 days, how many times did you advocate for yourself? Whatever that means, meaning I set boundaries. I asked for more pay. I said I want more time off. I said I need to take a break today, right? So we see some 2s. Okay, 1s, 1. It could be, I want to take on that project. It could be, no, I want the last bite, right? It's whatever it is. How many times did you really advocate for yourself? Okay, we got a correction. Actually, 3. I love that. Not enough without guilt. Okay, so maybe you did a bunch and there was a lot of guilt attached to that. I appreciate that. So a slightly different question. In the last 30 days, how many times did you manage up with your stakeholders, whether that's up, down, all around, but actually actively managing up your relationships that are influential in your career? Okay, I appreciate the 0s. That is okay. 2. Every day, yes, we love to see that. Celebrating that. Okay, and then in the last 30 days, my guess is, especially those who might not be as comfortable with advocating, etc., how many times did you dare to fail, right? My guess is there could be, it depends, right? Great question. Not sure what good managing up looks like. Giving feedback, yes. That is one form of managing up. So we're going to share some tips on that as well. Okay. So advocating and negotiating for yourself are acts of self-confidence and self-love. That is how we teach it at RealYou Leadership, that this is a radical act of saying, I love myself enough to fail. I love myself enough to see what's possible. I'm confident enough to handle failure and see what the next step is after I shoot my shot and ask. And we want you to normalize practicing negotiating, self-advocating, and managing up on a daily basis, because there are truly daily opportunities to negotiate small things with a big impact on your career, quality of life, and fulfillment. We constantly in our coaching program are asking our clients, what did you do? What are you celebrating? What more did you advocate for yourself or manage up this week so that we could track that incremental change. And we always say nothing is too big or too small here. We invite it all, and giving yourself permission. What we want is for you to truly give yourself full permission in these next 2 hours to prioritize your growth and wellness, hype up the value that you bring, and build impactful, lasting relationships with your stakeholders. Because it's not just, again, about the money. It's about, am I comfortable at work? Do I feel empowered to take up space? Do I feel safe with my team? Do I feel comfortable giving feedback to even skip level management or C-suite, etc.? And to also give yourself permission to get support to advance and elevate in your career. That's part of managing up. Are you asking for help in all of this? So this is critical for BIPOC and women to rise into leadership roles, because frankly, it is no secret that BIPOC women and femmes are underrepresented in leadership, higher paid roles, executive roles, and we have overrepresentation in lower entry level paying jobs. And that is because we are truly working against real obstacles here. We experience, unfortunately, all of these things. I wish this list was shorter, and this list goes longer beyond what this slide can hold. We experience bias, racism in and out of the workplace, gaslighting, microaggressions, tone policing of not just our voice, but even our body expression and faces and the energy that we naturally have. We experience gatekeeping of resources, network, opportunities, which results into exclusion. And we also hold on top of our roles emotional and educational labor. If you're part of an ERG or even ERG leaders that we work a lot with who are unpaid, that further divides and creates gaps in equity, right? And we also face paid leadership and opportunity gaps, which we'll get into. And ultimately, this is on an interpersonal level as well as a structural and systemic level, right? So systemic inequality and oppression in policy, in law, in how your decisions or your pay bands are made in your companies, right? So we're often protecting ourselves for those who might be 2s, 3s, 4s, and don't feel as comfortable or aren't able to manage up or advocate without guilt. We're constantly protecting ourselves from things like, you're so sensitive, or someone calling us, you're not a team player, or you're being really difficult, you're aggressive. We're avoiding being called and labeled the angry Black, brown person, etc. Or has anybody ever been told, you're too blank, as if it was a bad thing, right? You're too much, you're too little, you're not enough, right? I can't tell you how many times our clients have been told that once upon a time earlier on their careers, when they were super excited, very ambitious, they were told by a leader, you need to sit back down, you're being too bold, you're not senior enough, you're being too outspoken. We recently did a workshop where one of the leaders said that they've been trying to work on empowering their team for DEI measures, but then now that their team is empowered, a skip level has told them, your team is too empowered now. So we're constantly stuck in this catch-22, and I can't tell you how many clients of ours have been told, you're too much. They overcorrected, started playing small, spoke up less, and even if they were overachievers and overperformers, they suddenly were going after promotions and were told, you're not assertive enough, you're not outspoken enough, you're not leadership material now. So what do we do in those moments? We will go through that. But the BIPOC women experience includes navigating all of this on top of doing your jobs. And it's estimated that women are paid up to $400,000 less than white, non-Hispanic males over the course of a 40-year career. And that gap, unfortunately, increases to way over $1 million for BIPOC women and femmes, depending on your intersectional identities. And I'm just curious here. I don't know about you, but I want that $1 million. Can I get a hell yeah if you want to find ways to close whatever gaps you might be facing. And a yes, please. I love that, because you deserve this. This is a lot of freaking money that could be going to our communities. I know that a lot of BIPOC women and femmes that we work with are caretakers for their elderly, for their children, for even cousins and extended family. And we care about community efforts and giving back to our communities. So I want you to make that million, because I know that it will overflow into making a larger impact onto the people that you care about and surround yourself with. So we are all in alignment here. So sharing about Equal Pay Days 2022, this changes yearly, and we've been keeping track of this for quite a while. And this is the first time in a few years that we've seen December. So it's getting worse. These days are not holidays. These days mark the days that women of these groups have to work until in order to make what the white male dollar made in December 31st, 2021. So March 15th is typically lovingly known as White Women's Equal Pay Day, because we have all these other categories. Like May 3rd is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Women's Equal Pay Day. And Black Women's Equal Pay Day is September 21st. Native Women's, Latino Women's Equal Pay Days are in December, meaning they have to likely work over a year in order to catch up to the white male's dollar. June 15th, yesterday, is actually, I believe this is the second year that they are honoring this, is showing Equal Pay Awareness Day for the LGBTQIA plus community. And I want to really stress the importance of this, because it is Pride Month. So happy Pride, everybody. And this is not a holiday or a celebration, right? This is bringing awareness that we actually don't have enough data for this community and all the different intersectional identities underneath here to be able to share what equal pay days are. And that's because of discrimination. Folks might not be out because they're scared of retaliation or they're not comfortable yet. And the government simply aren't requiring companies to collect this data or creating policies to collect this data, even in our US Census. So there's a lot. And this doesn't even impact just pay, it impacts their access to housing and resources. So we just have this awareness day. We don't have enough data for this. So, and this is Pay Gaps 2022. So another way to frame this is, with those dates in mind, women earn 83 cents to the white man's dollar. Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander women earn 75 cents. Black women earn 58 cents to the dollar, and Native women earn 50 cents, and Latino women earn 49 cents to the dollar. And I'd like this to really be broken down and explained. We have a few slides to really show that this is just blanket umbrella terms. And know that every group listed here, this data isn't as nuanced as we'd like, because we are all not monoliths. Under the AAPI community alone, including Native Hawaiians, look at this. Some folks even make historically more than $1. And some folks make under 52 cents under the AAPI community in this one study. And nuance really matters. This is, for instance, when we say Latino Women's Equal Pay Day, this is one study that shows just how much that can have in disparity between, say, Argentinians and Venezuelans and Guatemalans. So nuance really matters here. And even men aren't immune to pay gaps and inequities, as we're seeing broken down by race. And intersectionality really matters. Think about what a Black woman who is queer and disabled and an immigrant and English is their second language makes, compared to a white male born in the Bay Area that has no other necessarily minority power, intersectional identities, etc. So really think about how intersectionality plays into this, because our identities shape our lived experiences and how we navigate the workplace, as well as how we navigate the world, our everyday lives. These intersectional identities and how we were raised, what we were taught, impact the biases and the ceilings that stop us from reaching our full potential. And they influence how we show up in all our relationships, especially individuals with positional and historical power. And I'd like to ask here some reflection questions before we move forward with our lesson. What are some of your intersectional identities, if you feel comfortable sharing in the chat? And how do you know even one way they inform you as you navigate your career? So an example, I am Filipino American, I'm first generation, and due to things like the model minority myth and what my upbringing was, I was told to be quiet, keep my head down, don't question or rock the boat with authority. And I had to do a lot of unlearning in order to actually advocate in a place like tech. So would love to know what's coming up for you here if anybody wants to share. Yes, we're happy to share the resources and the links to them at the end too. Okay, anyone want to share? Okay, so African American woman, don't get angry, be happy to get offended, offered anything, make friends with everyone. New immigrant, Black female in tech. Yeah, so I appreciate you sharing that it's like, don't get angry, right? Be happy, smile more. Why do you look so upset all the time, right? Indian American, first generation, don't question authority, follow rules, be obedient. Thank you for sharing all of that. And really, you can continue to answer this as you move forward, and not to say that that's all we get. We get a lot of awesome, empowering goodness from our identities as well. And what I do know is that when we're navigating certain power dynamics or top-down hierarchy at work, things can get activated that actually block us from showing up as our most confident selves and advocating for ourselves. So I'm seeing first generation American, Latina woman, be obedient, don't be aggressive or too outspoken. So thank you all for sharing that. That's something to think about as we move towards mindset work. And so what can you do to close your own leadership, pay, and opportunity gaps? We are here to teach you to learn to lead, negotiate, and self-advocate like badasses every damn day. Not just twice a month, not just 3 times a month, definitely not 0 times a month, every damn day. Because negotiating is the #1 leadership skill in my mind. That's really what I claim. That's what I preach, because it comes with all of these actions. Being a great communicator, being transparent and direct, actively listening for what is said and what might not be said, really listening deeply for nuances, change in tone, etc., and flexing your emotional intelligence, your EQ. Empathy and understanding is a must, which I know a lot of us naturally have. And we also flex our ability to have impact, create influence, and invite collaboration in with the people we're negotiating with, our stakeholders. And we also have courage and vulnerability as a must, because it is very scary. And we do need to keep it real that this is not enough. And that's a very vulnerable thing to say. And it also nurtures resiliency, not even just in resilience of survival, but thriving. It brings out grit and adaptability, being able to be in flow, because negotiations typically aren't just a one and done conversation. It could be a series of conversations, and each conversation can bring in new lessons, new learnings that you might not have expected. So you got to stay adaptable and be able to flex your communication or flex your strategy along the way, which makes you creative, resourceful, and has you act from your vision of, this is what I want. I may not know all the steps to get there, but every step I'm looking for what new possibilities are here. What should I do next? What can we do next? So to learn and excel in negotiations is to be an empowered leader. What we're asking you to look for is not win, lose. I think a lot of times we get into somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. We want there to be win-win-win opportunities, a win for you, a win for your stakeholders, a win for the organization you're in, because they get to have your awesome brilliance and the value that you bring every day in your role. And we want you to dare to fail and learn and create new possibilities and grow mutually beneficial and meaningful relationships, as well as own your expertise and share your brilliance. So we're going to share some mindset and tactics, but I'd just like to see in the chat if there's anything here, Claire, that might be answered now, or is this something that might wait for later?
It's something that can wait for later. And I'm hoping that throughout the training that GM will be able to gather the tactics that they're looking for here. And just some amazing shares from people sharing their intersectional identities and how it impacts how they show up at work. Some really great shares.
I see that. And I see someone say biracial woman in tech, not quite white enough, not quite Black enough, right? That is definitely the unique, nuanced lived experience of folks who are biracial. And first gen college and master's student, too honest, my face is too much, just execute, hold off on your ideas. I see that. Right. So we should be robots. But then when we keep a straight face, oh, you should show more expression. You should smile more. You don't look pleasant enough, right? There's a constant tightrope act that we are playing. And I see some folks saying, I can relate to that so much. So thank you for sharing that. So quickly, if you don't know how to manage up or negotiate or self-advocate well or at all, it's not your fault. No one ever taught us how to rock the boat and thrive in spaces that were not built for us. So I've already shared some of my history and some of my intersectional identities. This is a picture in the middle of my parents, who are Filipino immigrants from the Philippines. They immigrated in the 70s, and this is the first time they saw snow. And we're so happy. And this is me in Catholic school, K through 12th grade, meaning that I lived under fairly strict, very loving, very amazing Filipino parents, Filipino immigrant parents who told me to do as they said. I also went to school with very strict Catholic teachers that typically were priests or nuns who told me, do not question my authority. You listen to me. Don't get curious. Don't ask questions. We will tell you what to do. Do not rock the boat. Do not cause trouble. Do not have an opinion a lot of times. And we have to really think about, how did you get raised? How were you nurtured? And what internal programming society and who influenced us might have given us? Because all this that I learned carried on to my adulthood, and it blocked me from sharing even my great ideas, not even just asking for more money. And because of this, a lot of our clients can relate to this, where they were told by their parents who didn't have this type of work, oh my gosh, don't even negotiate. That is so much money. That's so much more than we ever made. I didn't negotiate my first 2 salaried roles because of that. And one day I found out that I was getting paid $20,000 less than my white male counterpart, doing the same work, even if I helped hire him on. So that to me was really telling of what I didn't dare to ask for actually mattered. Because until diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice is brought into all our workspaces, where pay transparency and equal pay for equal work is actually honored and implemented into policy, what we can do is negotiate for ourselves in the meantime. And the reason why we also might not know how to move forward on this is because we get bland cookie cutter advice that doesn't dig deep into the biases and aggressions and systemic inequities we experience in and out of work, and doesn't honor our roots, our ancestors, the intersectional lived experiences we just talked about as BIPOC women, and that values strategy, pure strategy, over mindset and wellness. And what we want you to do is to always be active, right? Especially when you thought, okay, I only advocated for myself twice this month. We want you to be active and find ways to do that daily. And so we're going to go over 5 ways you can anchor for your next negotiation. 1 is to get clarity on the process and timeline with your stakeholders. If you don't know when you're able to negotiate, when is a good time, start asking for it. And we're going to break these down further. Number 2 is ask for advice and create feedback loops, meaning, are you getting the advice to do exactly what you need to do in order to reach that next level, and for your stakeholders, the decision makers, in giving you that next 1 through 8 in the next 12 months that you answered, right? Do you know what they want to see in you? Do they know what they want to see you achieve, or what skill sets you should be showcasing? And number 3, have your receipts ready, meaning get your market research together, etc. And number 4 is get crystal clear on what you're asking for, and prepare any scripts and practice is the final step. So number 1 is to get clarity on the process and timeline for your stakeholders. So I explained a little bit what that meant, but I can't tell you how many times we've had clients that said, I don't even know when my next review is. I don't even know when I can negotiate. We've never talked about money in the year or 2 years that I've been here, just kind of been coasting, right? And so what we want you to do is dare to ask things like, hey boss, when is a good time to talk about compensation? Or, hey, I know that we just passed our annual review, and I know that's not the best time to talk about this, but I would like to talk about this. When is a good time? Okay, 3 months from now, let me confirm that and set up a follow-up, right? Or who's part of the decision-making process? Every company and organization for our clients that we have worked with is very different. Some people have a no negotiation policy and they have transparent leveling. Some people don't have leveling. Some people have a committee that even their boss doesn't get to speak to. Some people have a HR business representative that you get to work directly with. Some people get to work directly with the C-suite. So you need to clarify, if you don't know yet, who is part of the decision-making process and what do you need to prepare for success? That's asking yourself, hey boss, what do you need? If you're the one going to bat for me, thank you for that clarity. I have all this market research here that I've done. How can I present that to you so that you can be prepared for success? What else do you need from me to prepare you for that conversation as you go to bat for me, right? It's help me, help you, help me ultimately. And you always want to confirm next steps and the next follow-up. Don't leave it at just one conversation, because if your boss says, well, it can be 3 months from now, cool. Can I follow up with you in the next 2 weeks to see how we're doing? Or is there anything I can do right now? Or is it, I just have to wait 3 months? Awesome. In the next 3 months, what do you need to see in my growth to show that I'm at the next level? We really want you to always be asking curious questions, which leads me to number 2. Are you daily asking for advice and creating these feedback loops that show that you are growing, that show that you are hitting deliverables and the skill sets that they want to see in you? So specific actionable advice daily is what we're looking for. And we want you to always use this as a way to manage up, down, and all around. Someone said, oh, is giving feedback a way of managing up? Yes. Like, hey boss, I noticed that I haven't really gotten feedback on how I have been doing in my product manager role now that I've been here for 6 months. What do you think I need to improve on? Right? What's one specific action I can do even today to reach a new level of growth or to learn this new skill set, etc. And we want to make sure that you don't wait for your performance or annual reviews. Actually, quite honestly, there's usually a set budget across the board for your entire company or organization for merit increases or annual increases. So sometimes that's not the best time to actually advocate for the biggest increase, but you can still anchor your next negotiation and say, great, I appreciate this. And what wiggle room do we have? Okay, maybe not now because the budget's already been set, but how about 6 months from now? Right? That's what we mean by anchoring, because it might not happen right away. And we really want you to set for that. And again, performance and annual reviews is typically when folks think we need to have this prepared, but you should be asking today. So what I mean by feedback to advice, why this is really critical, especially for Black, Indigenous, and women of color, is that we get advice about our personality, about maybe your communication style, but not actually what we need to thrive and up level and advance in our career. So you might say, oh, hey, how did I do in that meeting? And your boss might say, you did great. That's really nothing to go on. And if you're not getting actionable advice, that means you might not be growing in the ways that your stakeholders want to see in you or need to see in you, whether or not they know it unconsciously. Because I can't tell you how many times we had a client who kicked ass, hit every KPI, but when she asked for a promotion, suddenly twice now, before she started working with us, they said, well, you need to be more strategic. And then when we told her, ask what more strategic means, they didn't actually have anything to tell her that she could do in action. And that's where we see these discrepancies a lot. And what furthers our pay gaps often is that we're not actively getting this advice consistently on a daily basis. So I want you to be thinking, how can I advocate for more? So one example is, instead of saying, how did I do in that presentation in that meeting? You could say, well, I appreciate your advice, boss. So a goal of mine is to be an expert speaker. Based on that presentation, what 3 points of improvement can I practice next time? Okay, great. So I'm going to practice that. I'm going to follow up with you in a month or in the next meeting that I take up space on or lead. And if you could be looking out for that, that would be great. And I'll follow up to see how did I do. Next example could say, am I growing as a product manager? That's a great question. And a better question could be more actionable advice that we're pulling for. So far, I've tried X, Y, and Z, but feel a bit stagnant in my growth as an expert. What's one thing I can do in the next month to grow as a more effective product manager? Or how do I get promoted? You could be even more specific and pull for advice. What do you expect me to achieve, and what growth do you need to see in me in order to get that promotion in the next 3 to 6 months? Okay, cool. So when can we make this happen? Right? What do you think about checking in every month, once a month during this time? So feedback loops are agreed upon processes between two parties to loop back around and check back in with each other after implementing advice and feedback to create momentum and a better outcome. So what this looks like is, okay, you receive feedback, you ask for advice, you design a plan and check-ins, you implement said advice and follow up, and you receive feedback again, and you rinse and repeat, because the growth doesn't technically ever need to stop, right? And why we want there to be a feedback loop is because your work cannot speak for itself. It does not speak for itself. We need you to constantly be speaking for your work. And in doing this type of feedback loop, you're constantly saying, cool, I did that. This is what I'm celebrating. This is what I'm learning. And here's what more I think I can do. What advice do you have for me to continue this growth path? Or is there something new that you think I could learn to reach that next level? So number 3 is have your receipts ready. We in RealYou leadership call this bad bitch folder, right? What is your bad B folder? What is your brag folder? What is your feel good folder? What is your praise folder? Any single praise or compliment or recognition that you get, take a screenshot, transcribe anything verbally said out loud to you, pull receipts from emails from customers who said, so-and-so did a great job working in this product design, etc., and really put it in there to collect everything that you've done, especially things where you saved your company a lot of time or a lot of money or a lot of other resources, or you gained a lot of money for them and revenue for them. Those are the things you really want to put there. Or if you streamline workflows, or if you showed an exceptional amount of leadership skills that people praised, put it all in there and include that in your market research. And Claire and I have a quick and dirty market research resource that we can share with you at the end, so that you can pull, again, for market research, should include online searches. We have some that are different from just Glassdoor and from LinkedIn or PayScale. There's some other ones that we found along the way that are really helpful in tech. And start doing informational interviews. to really know, where do I fall in this market range? Ask your white male counterparts, for instance, or ask each other, especially if you're in the same type of industry, same exact role and level. Hey, what are you getting paid? And if people don't feel comfortable giving you the exact pay that they're receiving in compensation, I recommend saying the high-low measure of saying, if I say a number, can you tell me if you're higher or lower? So I'm asking Chad, just saying a random name. I'm asking my coworker, Chad, hey, Chad, are you making 100K? He might say higher. Okay, how about 110K? He might say lower. So I know Chad is between 100 to 110K, right? Use these tips. Make sure that you're actually pulling sources and citing sources in your market research from people in your role. Another tip is to straight up ask recruiters, especially, I know product managers are high in demand and people want to diversify with folks like us. So anytime a recruiter hits you up, cool, what are you paying for this role? I'm only going to consider interviewing if you pay me X atrocious amount. And then you can take that to your boss and say, hey, boss, what would you do in my shoes? Someone is offering me 30K more to interview for a different skip level role. This is something one of our clients did. And you never know what can come up from that. And so what you want these receipts ready for is to show, this is the value that I have already brought in my work. And this is the value that I will also continue to bring, and then some. So make sure that your market research also includes, this is the promise. This is what I am going to continue bringing for you if you continue investing in me as well. And we're reaching that equal energy exchange here. And so get crystal clear on what you're asking for is number 4. Total compensation. Do not guess your number on the spot. Do not go to an interview, even for a promotion, and say, random number, right? Or lowball number, especially. We want you to know, this is my line in the sand. I will go no lower than this. This, based on my market research, is the high end that I believe I should get. Understand the role that you want, the title that you want, the level that you want, and the responsibilities, the things that you actually desire to work on, and be really clear in asking for that and see what's possible. And also see, are you asking, for instance, a pay adjustment for additional labor outside of your job description? So in that case, we want you to make sure you're not asking for a raise, you're asking for a legitimate pay adjustment, which has worked really well for our clients who, for instance, took on responsibilities for a senior role that wasn't backfilled. And they stepped up, took up a lot of leadership responsibilities and actions on a daily basis. And they were able to eventually get a 10% increase in pay over the course of a few months of negotiating. And then I want you to be really clear again on, what is a non-negotiable for you? What is my absolutely not? And make sure you stick to it. And number 5 is to prepare any scripts and practice, because we don't want you to wing your next negotiation. We want you to be empowered in your language versus having apologetic language. Like, no, oh, I'm sorry. I actually do want to discuss compensation. What do you think about 20% more, right? We want you to be firm. I would like 20% more. What's possible here? And Claire and I will also share a second resource on negotiation script makeover to watch out for apologetic language or disempowering language. And I advise that you also get support when you need it. So ask for help from your colleagues, ask for help from allies, ask for help from mentors, or work with coaches, or ask the Women in Product group, like, who has done this type of negotiation? Let's move through it. Let's work through it together. Can you help me? The best leaders that we work with know how to unapologetically ask for help, because you don't need to do this type of stuff alone. I think we're often convinced that this is a solo act. It's on me, it's my pay. And you have this amazing community here to support you in that. And stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And the reason we say prepare scripts is because we often find that clients feel like they have to just like wing it or just know inherently what to say. You don't have to do that. Actually, in our coaching program, even with boundary setting, we help our clients with scripts like, this is what I think I'm going to say. And it can really unpack, and we can streamline our communication when we visually see it or practice it out loud in our words and say, why am I talking like I'm from a different century, right? Why am I talking so proper and not as myself? We want to make sure that it's language that feels natural to you. So some script considerations: ask yourself, how are you setting up and introducing the negotiation? Are you just going to data dump and be like, here's what I want, here's my market research? No, we want you to really structure an agenda and say, hey, boss, I'm here to talk about compensation today. Here are the 2 points I want to talk about. I want to talk about the value that I brought in my market research and what I'm looking for in my next level pay, right? So let's go through it. Or what are the exact words you want to start to conversation? You might have a different version than what I just shared. And what does a win-win look like? So again, we're not saying win-lose. We want to say, hey, I feel great about this, and in return, I have done this, and I will continue to do this. And again, how will you present your market research? Prepare for that. And the last bit that we really think is critical, because this is the part that scares people the most, and as someone part of tech sales, we always had objection handling scripts in our sales negotiations. So what we want you to do is to remember that negotiations start at no, and to prepare for the no. I think a lot of us are really scared of getting that rejection, but no is not the end. No is a redirection. No means that we can start asking for more clarity, invite collaboration, and anchor our next negotiation. So I'd like for you, when you prepare your objection handling scripts, to list out your biggest fears. And if you are with engineering background or product managers, I know you can understand, if this, then that, right? If this, then I will do that. If this, then I will do that. If they say this, then I will say that. And look for clarity and collaboration points. So for example, if they say, you know what, there's no budget for a raise this year, I'm so sorry, then you can say things like, okay, when will there be a budget? And pause. Okay, so not a raise, but what else is possible? And pause. How about more vacation time? How about more learning and development funds? How about you sponsor my grad program? What else is possible? Right? Do you see that we're not stopping at no, we're continuing to move forward and asking for more. And if they say that, you could say, I see, I've recently completed a project that brought in $1 million in additional revenue last year. I'd love clarity on how you made that decision. And then pause and listen and continue looking for that clarity and points of collaboration of, okay, well, again, when will there be a budget? How can we plan together for this? Or we're not giving you a promotion. We'd like to see more strategic thinking before you move forward in next level. Then you can say, what are 3 ways I can show I've grown in strategic thinking then? Or how can you support me in growing that? Right? Inviting that collaboration, like, okay, I'm not just going to guess, like, I need your help, boss. I need your help, stakeholders. Or the next one might be, based on your description of strategic thinking, I'd like to share some ways I think I've already actually achieved that, and see what you think. That's one of my favorite ones of, who said I didn't do it? Maybe I wasn't advocating and showing you that I actually already knew how. So normalize practicing negotiating, self-advocacy, and managing up on a daily basis. And I'd like to see in the chat, which anchoring step will you work on in the next 7 days? If there's anything that you've already been doing that you're like, okay, I need to do more of that, or maybe it's something new. 1 through 5, is it getting clarity on the process and timeline, which is a really easy thing to do, of saying, okay, I just need to start asking and having this conversation and get the ball rolling to anchor my negotiations. Or is it asking for advice and creating feedback loops, even starting today or tomorrow? Or getting your receipts ready. That's a fun one. I love putting the bad B folder together. Or number 4, getting crystal clear on what you're asking for. Or number 5, prepare any scripts in practice, because you might already be approaching a critical conversation. Yes, No is redirection. Rejection is redirection. That's exactly what we teach. We're going to share a bit more mindset shifts on that too. I'm glad that is something there, because if you can continue telling yourself that for any critical conversation at work, or even I'm scared to share my idea in this meeting because I'm not technical enough yet or senior enough yet. Well, if I get a no or rejected, that's a redirection. I'm willing to learn, right? So some 5s. Great. Script practicings. Check out who the 5s are, and maybe y'all can practice together. Find some buddies, find some friends here.
I love that. Yeah.
Building in support here.
Okay.
Because you don't have to do it alone. And a lot of our clients always work together. Say, can someone help me? Can someone review this with me? Or just like, I need a body to speak to.
Yeah.
You could record yourself and then listen and say, like, actually, I'm going to tweak my script a little bit. There's so many ways to do this. I see some 1s, some 1 through 3, 1, 2, 4, 5. Yeah. And this is just in the next 7 days that you could do this. And again, I want you to think about, how can I be doing at least one of these on a daily basis, right? Maybe it's reviewing your scripts. I always say pulling your bad B stuff, pulling your praise folder stuff, do it once a quarter and review it when you need that confidence boost, right? Or do your market research once a quarter just for kicks, right? And to be able to see, did it change? Am I still on par with the rest of the market? So again, strategy is nothing without mindset, because all the best career advice is out there for free 99. So what stops us from getting more comfortable with advocating, for getting more comfortable with negotiating and putting what we know into practice? These are some online searches of what to do when you get a lowball offer and all the great free advice out there, which is exactly what you can learn on your own and gives you word for word what you could say. But I know that strategy needs to be paired with some rockin' mindset. So if you joined day 1 of Women in Products Conference, you might already be familiar with this, but the 4 inner hater mindsets are here. This is what stops BIPOC and women professionals from advocating for themselves or at all. These are just 4 out of many mindset blocks that we might have. And what we say in coaching is that we basically need to really unlearn just as much as we are learning, right? Because again, so many of us already have this knowledge. So many of us already technically know what to do for negotiation. It's as simple as saying, I would like $20,000 more than what your original offer is. What's possible? And yet it might make us freeze up or close up or run away or shame ourselves even. And those types of reactions, we want you to really be curious about and look out for, and really think, what can I do to let this go? Even 1% more today. How can I unlearn how this shows up in action? Even 1% more today. So inner haters are also known as self-sabotaging thoughts or saboteurs, gremlins, inner critics, your inner judge, internalized oppression even. This is something that I say a lot, that once upon a time, the system or a person oppressed us and we internalized it so that we don't get hurt again. So by others, so we will hurt or oppress ourselves again and keep us playing small again. So it could also just be simply called your deepest fears. This is what I'm scared about. This is why I'm not putting myself out there every day. This is why I don't dare to negotiate ever. And that's okay. But we cannot move through, or we cannot overcome what we will not name. So why I like to call them inner haters is because frankly, we're just hating on ourselves when we're acting from these voices and we are talking badly to ourselves. So if you joined day 1 of the conference, I went in through with these. I know there's a recording out there of the red light, yellow light, green light system of when you're in the red of all 4 of these voices, when you're in the yellow, when you're in the green, these are some examples of how you act or how you talk to yourself or things that you might be projecting out into the workplace or your relationships at work. So this is just a quick recap of that. The people pleaser sounds like, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity. No need to rock the boat. I want to prove myself first. And I don't want them to think I'm greedy or ungrateful if I ask for more. This is what stopped me from negotiating my first 2 salaried roles, right? Or I'll need the perfect fail-proof plan before I move forward and negotiate or ask for advice or manage up. And what it looks like is we're really avoiding conflict. A lot of our clients are big avoiders. They don't want to be told no. They avoid rejection. They avoid being told otherwise. And so as a result, they often people please and fawn on people, meaning, you might be familiar with the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses in our defense mechanisms. These are defense mechanisms. And this one is similar to fawning, that I'm going to people please as much as possible so you don't think that I'm being rude or disagreeable or anything like that. And I'm curious if you relate to this. This is the part that a lot of people think, I'm being dragged a little bit. Are you speaking about me? How do you know my inner thoughts? And what this also does, the people pleaser, is perfectionism to a fault, that I need to prove myself first. Well, what does that even mean? Who told you you haven't proved yourself yet? Right? Or I cannot make a single mistake. If I make a mistake, then I cannot ask, regardless of you kicking butt for the whole entire year up until one mistake, right? Or being overworked and overextending and overwhelmed. We've all heard of women of color need to work twice or thrice as hard in order to get half the pay, half the recognition, half the respect. So what we do is we don't know how to say no. We're scared of receiving no. We're scared of giving no and displeasing others. And oftentimes we fall into imposter syndrome, which we'll get more into later. And as Claire said, I am a recovering people pleaser as well. It still pops up. I just know how to build awareness around it. And I know when I am in it immediately, like, ooh, that was a people pleaser thought. I do not want to act from that. What do I need to do to take a moment and take a step back so that I come from a place of my values and my power instead? And the victim is the next one. It sounds like the world is against folks like me. What's the point in sticking my neck out? No one like me ever reaches that position, so I should just quit while I'm ahead, and why bother? They'll just call me the angry, Black, brown, Latino woman, etc. And so I want a caveat to be here that we just did talk about systemic oppression and that there are very well alive systems of inequity and exclusion out there that are not designed with us in mind to elevate and advance in our careers. And we never want that to stop you from trying. We never want that to stop you from daring to see what's possible and shooting your shot. And what this can look like is upset behind the scenes and silent in front, or defeated and giving up before starting. And it's a fast road to burnout, being stagnant and stuck. And the next one is the imposter. This is very typical in tech. And it's not just us as women and femmes of color and women who experience this, right? It's something that is a phenomenon that everybody experiences and might not be talking about actively, but it sounds like everyone else is better than me. I'm not leadership material. My ideas aren't good enough to express in this meeting. I don't belong here or don't deserve this. And it looks like self-deprecation as a form of self-preservation. Like, let me hurt myself so that no one else can hurt me as much because I already did it. I did it first, haha, right? Or comparing and despairing, and low self-esteem, low confidence. It's perfectionism, being scared of making mistakes, being scared of being found out that I don't belong, or even if I got this money, they'll find out that I'm not worth it, right? This is what imposter syndrome is. The next one is toxicity. It's more of a fight response, right? So it sounds like, be better have my money, or F this, I don't deserve this, I'm going to CC everybody and go off right now, and I shouldn't have to negotiate. My work should speak for itself, which again, we've already clarified. We must always speak for our work. And what this can look like is fight mode or vengeful. It could look defensive or hypervigilant. And it can also look like we're always thinking in the worst case scenario that there's no way this is going to go my way. It's always going to be bad. There's no other option other than I'm not going to get what I want. It's never going to change, right? So we're fixated on problems versus trying to find solutions or moving forward. And this is also a fast road to burnout. Now, I have been in this one deeply so towards the end of my career in tech, and I understand that this is real. I mean, who doesn't have a reason to be angry? Think about, we're missing out potentially on $1 million. I am very angry about that for me and for you. So there are a lot of reasons we are angry or have very natural reasons to be angry. And what I know is that when we act from this in a negotiation or advocating for ourselves fully, we will put the other person in their defense responses. Their inner haters or their defense and survival mechanisms will come up. And then we're just all these people in our defense mechanisms trying to interact and trying to find a way to find a win-win. It doesn't work this way. So we don't want the other party to also be on the defense. And so what we need to do is learn how to effectively communicate our anger. I'm really disappointed that there isn't a budget this year. Can we talk about how that happened? Again, I made the company through this one project $1 million. So it is a little disappointing to know that I can't get a piece of that. So what happened? Right? We can express our disappointment, our frustration, our confusion, our anger, and we are constantly trying to invite in curiosity and collaboration, as I said. So I'm curious to see here in the chat, which of these 4 inner hater mindsets do you know you need the most support with today? And this can change, right? I've been within the span of 10 seconds, people pleaser to victim to imposter to angry, toxic city, and then back and cycle through and rinse and repeat. So my default used to be the people pleaser. At times, my default used to be the imposter. Now my default is toxic city, typically. Sometimes I'll still ask Claire for like something that I feel very nervous about or a new partnership that we're working on. That I'm like, ooh, this is a big deal. We want this so badly. And I'll ask her to spot check and say, can you make sure this doesn't have people pleasing in it? Because I'm feeling a little people pleasing because I want this so bad.
Yeah.
Or I'll tell Claire, I'm angry. They haven't paid us on time. What is this? They haven't fulfilled this invoice. It's been in that 45 days. And I'm so angry. I'm going to say this. And she's like, well, I don't think you need to come from the toxic city place as much. You just need some clarity here. You know, so I understand the power and what it means to come from both. And I love this. Claire, if you want to share what's in the chat.
Yeah. We got 1 through 4. Love that. People pleaser with some imposter thrown in. That's me too. My new one is imposter now that I've really been working on my people pleaser. Honestly, all of them, LOL, depending on the situation, right? It'd be like that. 1 through 4, 3, 1 to 4. Sonia, we're leaving up toxicity here, so hopefully that clarifies more for you. 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 2 and 4. Yeah.
We are all of these things.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Y'all understand that these are just 4. Our brains have beautiful neural pathways aplenty that are beyond just these 4. But these are the 4 that I believe really we can all align with and resonate and have typically experienced at least once very deeply in the span of our careers, no matter how earlier on or how later in our careers we are. These always activate. And what we want you to do is learn how to shift away from these. Because the thing about these mindsets, especially when we come into what we think is a defensive or survival mode, it's really scary to negotiate and advocate for ourselves. And these get activated because we are suddenly feeling a sense of danger. And we're used to being safe if we people please. If we don't shoot our shot, because what's the point? It's never going to change. So I won't put myself in that danger, quote unquote danger. Or what's the point? I don't deserve that anyway. So I'm going to stay in this imposter comfort. because there is a comfort to staying here, right? But there is also deep discomfort in staying here. So I say choose your hard, choose your discomfort that you're willing to go through. And I encourage you to see what's beyond this, because new possibilities, this is why we say act from your vision, not your current vantage point, because this might be your current vantage point, but we want you to act from your vision of the leader that you know you can be, the self-advocator you know that you can be, the champion for yourself that you know you can be, and move beyond that. And our bodies, our minds don't know the difference between activating defense responses like this in us, between us literally being chased down by a bear and our face about to be mauled versus I'm just going to ask for a 15% raise here, which we want you to be asking for more than 15%. But our bodies, our minds really don't know the difference, and the same activation in our minds happen. So we want to build, a lot of our work with our clients is really taking the time to build awareness of, okay, if you were 1, 2, 4 or 1, 3 or 1 through 4, whatever, think about, how does this show up in my life? How does it actually manifest in my conversations? How does it show up in how I act at work or in meetings, etc.? And ways to shift away from that, I'm going to give you 2 mindsets shifts instead. Curiosity over judgment, and progress over perfection. How that can look like. Curiosity is a lot of the questions we've been asking. So instead of saying, I can't believe this, of course they don't have a budget, of course they're so cheap, they undercut us, which might be true. And it doesn't help us to stay in that. Instead, I want you to ask things like, well, what can we do? What else is possible, as you saw? But how you practice that for your inner hater talk or your inner hater activations is, how does my body react when I'm in inner hater talk versus shaming myself and saying, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I'm people pleasing again. This sucks. Like I'll never change. We want you to think, well, how does my body react? So I can notice it faster maybe. Or how do I want to show up like instead? And actually writing it out or talking through it with somebody. Or what's one thing I can do to connect with my confidence when I do recognize that I am in the people pleaser or the imposter, right? Or progress over perfection is the second one. So failure is, again, redirection. I saw, again, someone saying that is such a great learning for them. No equals redirection. No means we can fall on curiosity and say, what would make it a yes? Just curious, right? That's a valid question. What would make it a yes? And they might say, no, I don't have any wiggle room here. Have you ever I typically don't ask yes, no questions, but my favorite one is, have you never made an exception before? Because I believe I am an exceptional person and I will bring exceptional value to this, right? So staying curious over closing up and closing the conversation and closing the negotiation, we're continuing to move forward. And progress over perfection, again, is also getting out of binary thinking, like yes, no, right, wrong, win, lose. We want you to think, what else is possible? What's the next step? When can we put together a plan to make this a yes? What's the timeline for the budget to be approved? 6 months? Cool. I can wait 6 months. What do you need to see from me in the meantime to make sure that I get the maximum increase possible? We're constantly practicing the feedback loops and clarity and curiosity and progressing forward. And again, it's about acting from your vision always versus your current vantage point. No matter how deep these activations are for your inner haters, still finding it in yourself. Take a deep breath, roll out your shoulders, stretch it out, take a walk, or talk to somebody, talk to your accountability buddies, your friends, your mentors, your support system, and say, this is what I'm going through. These are my deepest fears. This is how I'm preparing for it. And I just need someone to help me right now. Or what do you see in me? Tell me that I'm awesome. I go around to my husband, and if he's home, and I run around when we're about to have a big sales call, and I'm just like, I can do this, right? Tell me I can do this, because I'm feeling like I can't, and I need that validation. So do what you need to do to move out of it and through it. We don't want to suppress it. We want to acknowledge, okay, it's here right now. What do I want to do about this? And when we say incremental learnings, right, we believe in RealYou leadership, incremental learning turns into incremental shifts in your actions, if you will it to be so, and act. And that creates incremental growth, which all adds up. Incremental growth adds up to transformation. And then we rinse and repeat, right? So today, what you're going to do in the next 7 days, what you said you're committed to trying to do in the next 7 days, that's based on your learnings here today. And what you committed to do is these shifts in action to integrate that learning. And then you're going to ask yourself, what did I learn from that? How did I grow? What else might I want to do? And it all keeps adding up to transformation. This is why with our clients, we work with them for 6 months and they don't notice how far they grow on a daily basis. We do, because we're looking for that little incremental change on a weekly basis. And then suddenly they look back in 6 months and they say, holy crap, how did I get here? Right? How did I transform so much without even fully knowing it? And that's because we're constantly, nothing is too big or too small. We're constantly looking for incremental growth. That's really what makes this sustainable. And what's one way? I'd love to see it in the chat. What's one way you can practice the curiosity or progress mindset and skill set even tomorrow or even today? Love some awesome suggestions or thoughts. I'm sure you will inspire many people with your practices.
Yeah. And while we wait for folks to go in the chat, I just came out of one of our group coaching client. We do laser coaching sessions before this workshop today. And we had talked about her incremental changes of just being with us for 2.5 months and just being in awe and giving her the acknowledgement of how much she's grown in just 2 months of practicing these mindset shifts.
Yeah. Get out of binary thinking.
Yes.
I love that. So if you don't mind sharing, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
One binary thought that you find yourself in that you want to move out of. For me, it's I'm either successful or I'm not. Right? Success, right? Define success. One of the biggest binary thinking that one of our clients had recently was I'm either burnt out or I'm not. Right?
Yeah.
I work 12 hours and I'm not burnt out yet, so it's fine. It's like, so it's either you're burnt out or you're not. That will signal you to rest and not overwork and overextend, right? Is there any other practice in curiosity or progress that you might be taking on in the next day or two?
Yeah. I have completed enough work today and I can do more tomorrow.
Yes.
Mm.
So in that example, kind of relating to what I just shared for one of our clients, where it's just like, she could have gone beyond 12 hours and there still would have been more. It was like, if I don't finish this today, then there's nothing, right? Or I love that your use of and, right? It's a yes and. Yes, I've done enough today and I can do more tomorrow.
Yeah.
It can wait.
I love that.
What's the urgency here, right? Really question.
If I let go at 5 o'clock when I'm supposed to, then it will be okay and I will pick it up again tomorrow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, so knowledge is power, and awareness is the first step to distancing ourselves from the mindsets that stop us from self-advocating and showing up powerfully and negotiating. And I'm curious, what's one step you can take to shift from inner hating to empowered today? I highly recommend starting with curiosity over judgment and progress over perfection. Even saying that as an affirmation to yourself on a daily basis, like, how can I be curious here? I see another one here. I can do great work with colleagues, be a great mom, and be a great partner. We work with a lot of mamas, and I can see how that is hard to own and keep creating space for those multiple truths all at the same time, right? It's not, I'm either a great employee or team member, or I have to choose being a great mother. But like, what if there is space for both? What is there space for all of that? How can I create more space for all of that to be true? What do I need to do to hold that? And I want to stress that you are worthy as the real you. You can shift away from these inner hater mindsets and self-advocate and negotiate and lead unapologetically. I can't stress this enough that you are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy of asking for more, asking for the value that you bring in that equal energy exchange, asking for space and time. You are worthy of that. And I can be a whole person outside of my professional persona. I'm a fan of what we say in Real You leadership with our clients is how we show up in one space is how we show up in another. And what would it look like for you to be the real you, your whole authentic self everywhere you go, no matter what? I know that can be scary. And I really think about what's the cost of not showing up as my whole self, my whole person, everywhere I go. So real quickly, before we go out into breakout rooms, I want to talk about how organizations and allies can help. And we are allies to each other. We all come from different intersectional identities and spaces. So think about how we can help each other. Think about, especially if you have positional power in your roles, how you can help those with less power or those who are historically marginalized, depending on your identities, and how we can all help close the intersectional pay gap. So how can organizations help end the pay gap? Regular pay audits of intersectional pay differences and doing measures and actually creating policy that takes into account intersectionality to correct disparities and provide equal pay for equal work, and wage and level transparency. So if there aren't clear bands or there aren't clear pathways to your career advancement, advocate for those and simply elevate us. Elevate more BIPOC women into leadership positions. It can be that simple. And we would love to see more of that. And also to create comprehensive anti-bias and anti-racism training for employees and intentionally creating psychological safety from the top down and providing a culture of curiosity, advocacy, and normalizing negotiations. Because a lot of our clients have worked with DEI directors who, when they were asking for more based on their market research or seeing that they were still highly underpaid, they were actually, they experienced gaslighting and were told, how could you be so ungrateful? So I really care about companies creating a culture that promotes and normalizes curiosity and advocating and negotiations. And also to believe BIPOC women when we say we are experiencing challenges and barriers, because it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to even say something. There's so much done to us, so much harm done that isn't even being said. So believe us when we say so. And how can allies on an individual level help close the intersectional pay gap? There's lots of ways. First and foremost, to understand that what is good for BIPOC women and the most marginalized, historically marginalized people, and getting us equal pay benefits all of us, right? Closing the gap for the most marginalized people will mean we all win. And one way you can do this is to ask yourself daily, I ask myself this daily even, how am I perpetuating the status quo of inequity for BIPOC women in the workplace as a non-BIPOC woman, for instance? Or how am I doing this as an API woman, a Filipino woman, as a non-Black woman? How am I perpetuating the status quo of inequity or the status quo of oppression, right? Systemic oppression. How am I benefiting from this even? And share your resources with BIPOC women. If someone asks for pay transparency, please give it. Even if we use the high-low method, if someone asks for negotiation support, please help us. And help us when you see any of the discrimination, that slide I showed you, gaslighting, tone policing, even when we're not in the room, when you see bias happening at play, speak up, take up space, and provide mentorship if you can, and trainings or sponsorship. Open doors for us, create pathways for us, and use your voice to advocate for BIPOC women daily, even when we are not in the room. And if you have positional power, some ways you can create more equity. Promote BIPOC and URMs into leadership, period. Question policies. So URMs are underrepresented minorities who might not be part of majority power in leadership. And question policies that may not consider intersectionality in your team, in your company, organization-wide, and openly discuss how power and privilege, historical power, positional power, and privilege perpetuate the status quo in your organization, and amplify the ideas, work, and voices of women of color and each other. And I want you to always think about progress over perfection here in this type of allyship. And active allyship is to not underestimate the power of your individual contributions and efforts and energy, because small intentional shifts of all of us do add up into transformation. So that is the final bit. I just want to always make sure that we have room for that, because we can all make a difference, not just for our individual selves, but to realize that we're operating under a greater system that we are all harmed by, or all experience different biases that we have to navigate under the same system. So let's do our part for ourselves by negotiating, and let's do our part to create greater change in a systemic level. A lot of these can be applied into whether you're getting a promotion or trying to move up, or with recruiters as well, or hiring managers, really sticking to, I need to know what I'm asking for, have my market research ready, anchor the negotiation by saying, like, when can we talk about compensation? I have some questions. What wiggle room do you have? It's a lot of the same motions for that 1 through 5 steps. And even bringing in the value that you've brought. I can answer it more in depth in the Q&A, but this is the value that I'll bring historically based on my previous roles, et cetera, or the value that I will bring. So all of that actually stays the same. It's just a different framing because it's new folks, and really knowing that also that can be a series of multiple conversations, where we've had clients where they negotiated their new role and new job offers, and it took 2 weeks back and forth, and like constantly hopping up, off, and on, and saying, like, what else can you do? What else is possible? We're not quite there yet. And every step of the way really saying, I'm so excited for this role. And here's where I think we can move a little bit more. Who do you need to speak to? What else can I provide to make that happen? It might feel a little different because you don't know them as well as you would your team members, and the same concepts still apply.
Hey, hi, let me I'll just get out here.
Love it.
So my name's B. It was really nice to just chat with everybody and read through all the experiences here. It's incredible to be in a room of so many women in technology, so thank you. I wanted to share a couple of things that really stood out for me, is that the whole idea of having like no scripts. So something that I've always struggled with is coming to my bosses, which are typically, dudes, or white dudes specifically, and being like, okay, hey, hi, I'm here. I'm full of energy. I want to get stuff done. And I want to get to the next level so that I can after a hand up, right? Like I want to elevate so that I can be representation, so that others feel empowered to stay, move forward in their careers. And then a lot of times that falls on like deaf ears, or they're like, well, I don't really know what the next thing is. And it's a boys club, and you get promoted because they're at the golf course, or going out to each other's boats, and it's just like, well, no, I'm not getting invited to the boat, whatever. But like, what is the path? Like, what is the concrete way to succeed? And a lot of this, oh, we're working on it, but we'll get back to you. And I've always just been taking that as like a deflection and being like, fine, I don't want to tarnish this relationship because it already is what it is. Instead of like standing in my power and focusing on what like my no script could be, and making them being held accountable to the roles that they're in. And that role as my manager is in part people development. And that was kind of illuminated with me for me throughout this conversation.
Yes. I'm so glad you saw that. And so, I'm curious what exact question might you have, or what are you committing to practice to kind of move forward in a different way? Are you looking for suggestions?
Yeah, so it's exactly that whole scenario. So I've been in my role for the last year and a half, and anytime I ask like, what does advancement look like? The answer is like, oh, we're working on it. Oh, is being evolved right now. Da 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 da. And it's like, well, 18 months that's a long time to work on evolving what it looks like to get to the next level. And I'm at a place where I want to know or I want to go, right? Like,
Yes.
when is it time to like cut your losses and see where other people will, I guess, understand your value and then want to harness your power and, grow and be a champion for you. And that's where I'm at, is like, so, okay, if I ask that question again, how do I deal with like, oh, wait, this is a work in progress,
Right.
and not come back off as like disappointed, which is generally what it is, and then kind of go into my safe space, which is like, okay, well, I'm just going to go back to avoiding conflict and just kind of managing this relationship, even though it doesn't serve me.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate that framing. And you said something be really important of, are you willing to go somewhere else if you can't get what you want here?
Mm-hmm.
Which it sounds like you are.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to, only you can discern, when is that moment? When is it a good time for me to leave? Everybody's comfort level or ability or desire or readiness to leave is different. So you have to get clear on what is important to you about staying here or not. But since you are open to that possibility, what we tell our clients who are like, I could advance here or I could go. Either way, what we really care about is practice your advocacy skills, because this kind of BS is everywhere. So might as well use this as a really beautiful, powerful practicing ground to flex that advocacy skill. And you never know if they'll actually start taking you more seriously, moving faster when you apply more pressure and don't take no for an answer. Right. And if you still find when you push a significant amount and advocate for yourself and not see any changes fast enough, and again, that's objective, that's what is in the eye of the beholder, then I would say make moves to go. I would use this as practice. And what's coming up for me is, have you told them that you're disappointed? Have you told them?
Yeah. So like, how do you necessarily have that conversation without getting blacklisted, right? And how do you have those like no scripts that kind of like redirect the energy instead of them just like shutting down like your curiosity, right? To your point earlier, your curiosity, how do I keep moving forward? And they're like, we don't really have that for you. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, what is the appropriate timeline to wait again? And then you just kind of like get in your head and you get shut down. It's like, oh, you don't, okay, well, how do I like, I don't know, like move that energy back towards them? And it's like, no, this is something that's important.
Okay. Yeah. So I would be very firm in saying, I have heard this for 18 months now.
Yeah.
And like one of the biggest questions that I would ask is, boss, if you have been told for 18 months straight that we don't have a plan for your advancement yet, and there is no pathway, and I'm just moving forward without any transparency on what growth will look like, even a month from now, even a year from now, right? However you want to say it, I would pause and ask, what would you do in my shoes,
right,
if there was no growth ahead? And really genuinely listen, because I want to learn from you. What would you do? Chances are they're going to be like, well, like, and who knows, but they might even say, well, I would likely look for another place. And these types of conversations, be ready for anything. We've had clients who their bosses, when they did that move, straight up said, you might need to look somewhere else. And they were finally honest, saying that I don't have a plan still. And as much as you're pushing, I would probably look elsewhere since you're asking that.
right.
And that hurts and you get your answer. But I would start with that. And I would also say, how can we put together a legitimate timeline? Because I do want to progress here. And if I don't see progression, I may have to look elsewhere. And you might need to be that honest.
Right.
And that's up to your comfort level. But I would continue being direct and saying, I'm really disappointed, right? Because it's been 18 months and I want some new update. What's one way we can get even one solid next step forward? How can I help you? Or who else can we speak to? And I'm curious, B, if you're also asking the same person each time, or if you're trying different avenues, maybe skip level, maybe going to people ops or HR and getting transparency from other venues. Because if we can't get it from one person, we might need to ask other ways.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. I appreciate that insight. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think you might do with that insight?
Well, it's kind of like reframing the question, right? Like, hey, like, what is the next steps? Da, da, da. Like, I tried that a little bit with my direct manager, and he doesn't really know. And admittedly, he's only been moved into that role above me the last couple of months, but he's also still my level. And I was like, bro, like, if you're supposed to be my manager and you can't tell me how I excel, then you don't know how you excel yourself, and that means both of us are kind of in a bad spot.
Wow.
So I've tried to frame it so it's advocating for both of us.
That's a great way.
But I think I need to have that conversation with the skip level again, and push forward more so instead of giving him the amount of grace that I have, as he's been a battlefield promotion in his position. Like it's been 8 months.
Right. And the framework for you, if you're thinking, oh, I'm giving so much grace, might be people pleasing, might be scared of a bit of conflict that, oh, you're going to call me the angry whatever, or say I'm too much, and just really say, how can I help us all rise? Clearly, we don't have pathways in advancement. How can I help? I know it's going to help me. I know it's going to help other people. So what's possible here? Right? It's a no now, but when will it be a yes? Right? Like, do you have any guesstimate, any timeline? Just say, like, I really want something. So what's possible? And I think that what I'm hearing is, again, really for you saying, I'm looking for clarity and I'm looking to work together on this. Right. So what can I do to help move this along? Because it matters to me, right? That's really what we're doing here. We're not saying, F y'all, this isn't enough. Like, you've been stringing me along. We're saying this matters. I'm happy to do additional labor to make it happen for me and for others, because I want this to be a win-win for all of us. Right. And also all the while having your market research, your praise folder, your bad B folder ready to show, like, I know I have brought, and really speaking for yourself and say, I know I have brought exceptional value and have proven myself. I would love to share market research whenever it's appropriate, whenever we can look through it and show where I believe I can be. Or B, it might be as simple as, hey, recruiters are hitting me up for X amount. This is something that one of our clients did to her C-suite in a rapid growth startup that just got acquired, and she helped a lot as their DEI and people ops manager, and said, skip level recruiters are telling me that I can get a skip level promotion and anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 more than what I'm getting here. I love it here. And I just needed to bring this to your attention because they're just hitting me up, even if I'm not looking. And I'm curious, what would you do in my shoes if you knew you could be getting more elsewhere?
Yeah.
Right? That's the move, especially for product managers and engineers, any technical roles. I think we're always in high demand, especially for folks looking for, to fill in their diversity quotas, right? There's some things we have to our advantage that, really show concrete data of what would you do in my shoes, and pause and see if that moves the conversation forward a bit more. What's coming up for you with that?
When you say that, it's very interesting because I do get hit up by recruiters all the time, right? And for like skip level positions, especially for like startups, I want like, you know, directors of products coming in, I feel like I'm in a space where I'm looking for like coaching is like a big piece of what even if I don't know how I'm going to excel, like at least coach me so that I can understand what your role is a little bit more and why you're so busy you can't figure out my career trajectory should be within the company.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but
a great
like,
question.
yeah, having that as like, hey, you know, just FYI, this is what people see as my value just by looking at like my LinkedIn. They're not even seeing the value that I'm bringing to the team on a day-to-day basis that you should be seeing and having insight. And so how do we bridge the gap here? That's like a really good lens that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah. And then to your point of why are you so busy that you can't make this? I would frame this not as a why, yes, no question, because that can tend to put people on a defense. I would frame it as how can you create space for this to be a priority?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are your other priorities? Maybe I can help you with one of those priorities to create more space, or how can we as a team create space for this as a priority? Because retention matters, right? So there's something here to that, but I think you have some pretty solid next steps here.
Yeah.
There's a lot to prepare for, and I hope you have an accountability buddy here to help you with those scripts.
Yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for taking up space here. Anything else coming up for you with that?
No, not in the moment. I want to open the floor for some of the other ladies to jump in.
Yeah, thank you so much, B. This is us again. Incremental change adds up into larger transformation. So thank you so much again for joining us, and use this knowledge, turn it into power. Claire can share, and I know that Women in Product team will share our opt-ins and some information, these one-sheeters on quick and dirty market research and negotiation script makeover to opt in and download copies of this. And for anyone who might be interested in our 6-month group coaching program, RealYou Leadership for BIPOC Women and Femmes, we would love for you to join us, to join a bunch of other radical, liberated leaders just like you, to break cycles that no longer serve us like this and create new cycles that elevate you. Zandy here was able to become a leader, learned how to do salary negotiations, and learn to lead and maneuver a meeting in a room full of tech bros, which I love. And Natalie here was able to get a 22% increase in pay plus promotion, and updated us earlier this year that she actually got another increase and hit her goal, and was also able to learn to value herself more, enjoy her job more, and build stronger relationships with coworkers, which was really scary at first to do. And you get all these things like 3 group sessions a month, weekly pre-recorded coaching for your nuanced individual journey. You get 5 one-on-one calls, access to all our lessons, including more in-depth lessons like this. We have 30 plus lessons in our vault, as well as an online community. Actually, it's not Facebook, it's Slack now, for in-between connections. And if you have questions, please connect with us. Also, consider bringing us into your company. We love working with other BIPOC women and femmes and leaders, ERG leaders or managers and executives. We're here for you. We got you. And we would love to continue connecting with you. Find us on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Look us up at nadiadeala.com and realyouleadership.com.